listening to the Cinema 9 podcast. Travis Roy, Michael Govier, and of course, Eric Branstrom. He's not here today, but he's with us. He'll be back soon. He's enjoying his vacay, and it's going to be fun, Travis. I'm looking forward to his return.
Yeah, he's like a little forest spirit, just kind of fading in and out, his head kind of shaking and rattling before he comes back in full view.
Strokes, just mini strokes.
That's him right now. Not the strokes part, though.
Well, I don't want a stroke for anybody, especially a good friend that I care about. But yeah, Eric will be back soon. He's still with us. Don't worry. He's just on a sabbatical. But you got us, Travis Roy, Michael Govier. We're going to talk about Travis's choice today, which is known as Princess Mononoke. Mononoke, am I saying that right?
Yeah, Princess Mononoke. That's fine.
Okay, I figured I did.
Yeah, we're Western white guys.
That's
no one's gonna
exactly
hold us too high of a standard when it comes to that kind of pronunciation. I would hope.
That's true, but at the same time, that's why I try even harder, because I am a Western white guy, and I'm like, I really got to get this right. I got to do better.
But then like you end up overreaching. It's like Mononoke, and then you sound like an asshole.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, I could not agree more with that. That makes all the sense of the world to me. So let's try to find the balance between being an asshole and being a reasonable podcast host. Of course, cinema9pod@gmail.com. 5-star review. We'd love to get a review. If you never reviewed the show, take a shot. iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify even now. And the YouTube still exists. We're not, again, if you'd missed it on the last episode, we don't record the show live anymore. The live stream is gone. But, I mean, we could throw some videos on there still. We haven't done that yet.
I kind of noticed.
Yeah.
We may be losing some fandom, some fans that way, and definitely this whole every 2 weeks release thing is kind of taking out of our listening numbers too.
I take full responsibility for that. That is my fault. Yes, we need to I need to be consistent. We really need to lock in, and I'm just gonna keep trying to do better, folks. I'm sorry, but I did watch this movie today. We're gonna talk about Princess Mononoke for our main event, but we talked about it, and, again, those that follow the show here, you know us well. Or if you're new to the show, welcome. But we used to do quarantine viewing picks. In fact, like 3 weeks ago, probably. We just stopped doing it for one episode, I think, technically, that we did last 2 weeks ago, right? Just for Hot Shots, I think? Oh, no, 2.
Yeah.
Hot Shots, and the last one Eric was on before he left.
Yeah.
Which was?
A movie. That was like 6 years ago now.
Yeah, I can't remember. I have no idea what it was. But you can look it up and see it on YouTube or listen to it wherever you love to listen to your podcast. But also, I want to mention Travis's music show, 9394, a music podcast. You're banking the episodes. You're getting a lot of interviews. Well, they are interviews in a way, even though they're about albums.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think of them as conversations.
That's fair.
Yeah, but I've been having a lot of meetings with folk and talking about a lot of albums. I'm putting out kind of a regular stream of episodes, and I appreciate the plug, Michael. Thank you.
Well, you just got your brother come on and talk about Recipe for Hate, a classic Bad Religion album that I love.
Oh, dude, me and my brother and Bad Religion, like that's a pairing right there. He really had a big impact on me with them, so it was cool to be able to talk about that album with him.
Fa 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 fa, raise your
different album. Before things started to go a little downhill when Mr. Brett left.
That's the best part. Bad Religion is they're like a family. They're like people They really were amazing, and they made a few mistakes, and then they got back to basics.
And then they made a Christmas album, and then
no way.
Oh, these fucking guys made a Christmas album, dude.
They did?
It exists. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Bad Religion Christmas, which just doesn't make any fucking sense.
I swear, as soon as this show's over, I'm going to go check that out because that blows my mind that actually happened. Wow. That sounds like a joke.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like the Harvey Weinstein massage palace. It just doesn't make any sense.
You said it all, my friend. That's well said. But yeah, so check out that show, 9394. I listened to the one with your former student, Pearl, talking about Hole.
Yeah, she got me into Hole. I didn't appreciate Hole, but I do now.
I loved playing Violet on the drums. That is a great song to drum to. It's just a lot of fun. It's high energy, very intense. Good song.
You're listening to the 9394 podcast with me and Mike Govier.
Hey, it's the Cinema 9 podcast meets the 9394 podcast.
Right.
Of course, movies exist, and we decided for a moment there, we're like, maybe we'll just cut out quarantine viewing picks and we'll just talk about the movie to trim the show a bit. But we've had a few people say they really like, in fact, one guy told me specifically, Travis, his favorite part of the show is when we talk about what we've been watching and share it with you guys. Because he said to me, I think, how else am I supposed to know what Eric's been watching if you don't do quarantine viewing picks?
That's a good question.
You're right. Technically, that is true. Yeah. I don't know how you would, but
stalk him, I guess. But please don't.
Please don't. But we thought we would trim it a little bit. But so I'll share a couple I watched. It reminded me we did this one. We did Legends of the Fall on this show, and I got to tell you, Travis, it's really weird because I don't remember what I said about the movie on this show at all. And I have a decent memory, but I have no idea what I said about Legends of the Fall.
All just jokes about Popeye. Just Popeye jokes, Anthony Hopkins Popeye stroke. That was it.
That's funny. See, what I learned on this viewing, Travis, is that it's a movie I love growing up. So I had heavy nostalgia. I basically was watching that VHS tape and Boogie Nights VHS tape on repeat rotation in 1997, basically. Mm-hmm. And what I learned this time watching it is this is a movie that has a lot of, I wouldn't say leftist, but a lot of like radical ideas for people you wouldn't think. Like, you're not sure if this guy is like a hardcore lefty or a libertarian in terms of Anthony Hopkins' character, who he's super sympathetic to the absolute travesty and massacres of Native Americans. And he treats them as equals on his own property in a time that was
after he helps carry out massacres against them, right?
Sure, he did.
Leading those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's fair. You're right. But he did learn, but not only that, he, had Native Americans living on his property with him together and treated them as equals in a time that you wouldn't see that. So I'm looking at the movie through a different lens now. Legend of the Fall is a very, it's got some interesting ideology going on there, and I dig that part of it now. I didn't really think about that as much when I was younger.
Yeah. Listen to our other episode if you want to hear me rail on about masculine myths and how they're perpetuated in that movie. But
yeah, now I remember that. I do recall that now. Yeah. And also I've judged Brad Pitt's performance because we talked about him recently on the show about how whether, he doesn't, we did 12 Monkeys.
We did. That was I think that was the one that we were trying to think of a minute ago.
That's right. Yeah, it was 12 Monkeys.
We did it. Our brains collectively came up with it.
Thanks, Eric. We love you. But Brad Pitt plays more of a kind of intense, unstable character in 12 Monkeys. So I was judging the Legends of the Fall performance, which is just classic. I'm super sexy, and I'm going to get emotional about things too, but I'm also going to be a badass, and I'm not really acting more than I'm just kind of following along with the script. So that's my opinion on that. But anyways, just because I said something doesn't mean it's universally true. And that's pretty much not wrong, Walter. You're just an asshole. But yeah, so it's fun to always, Legends of the Fall was on Netflix. I don't know if it still is, but I did watch it on there. So there's a tip for you folks. And I think that was it. I guess I couldn't remember everything else I watched. There's some TV shows, but I don't want to mention. Oh, I did watch, I watched Nobody's Fool, which I love.
Oh, I love it so much. Such
a great movie.
It really is.
Yeah. I think of Steve, who, by the way, will be our guest next week. We're going to mention my co-host on the Is It Safe podcast, another show that is connected to this in a way. Steve is the new co-host with me and Luke, for those of you who heard Luke before. Very exciting. And Steve will be on our show next week here for Cinema 9, and we'll reveal his pick at the end of the episode. But he really got me into Nobody's Fool, I think. I always think of Steve whenever I watch Nobody's Fool. It's funny how I think of one person specifically when I watch a movie, and that's one of them.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, associations and whatnot.
Associations and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a great movie, though. Do you have other viewing picks?
No, that's fine.
Was that okay? So I think that I subconsciously was just ripping through watching movies for a long time, so I'd have plenty to talk about for that segment. Because as soon as we stopped the segment, I like my movie watching ground to a fucking halt. I have not watched hardly any movies.
Really? They were connected.
I didn't really realize it, I don't think. But like subconsciously, there must have been, because like I've hardly watched shit in terms of movies since we stopped keeping track and doing this segment. I guess I was working on my podcast more, the other one. But you know what I have been doing? I'll tell you what. I have been taking a giant anti-anxiety pill every night and watching 1 or 2 episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I just love the fuck out of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I just watch it almost every day. And sometimes I'll pepper in the Amazing Spider-Man TV show from like the 90s, but mostly just been doing Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
So wait, the show is an anxiety pill, or you need one to watch the show?
No, the show itself is the pill. Like that's my
Oh.
anti-anxiety medication. It soothes me.
Yeah, it's like Seinfeld for me. Yeah, I've been watching. I watched the whole series, and then I really rarely watched the first 3 seasons as much. I wasn't the biggest fan, but now I locked in on it, and I appreciate it more. So I get that.
There's actually some of the best, like most memorable episodes are actually in the first season. When I went and rewatched it like last year, I was like, oh my god, like there's some real classics, and that's still going on in the first season.
Oh, also, I learned this. There's one episode, I think it starts season 2, and they decided to put vocals on the classic.
Oh my god, it's the worst.
Did you hear that? It's like
one episode.
Yeah, it's like only one.
Yeah, and it's like how to ruin a song.
Yeah, it was odd to hear that, but it did happen, and then I never heard it again on an intro to that show.
Yeah, it's very strange. I've also been watching Mad About You a little bit, and there's a lot of connections between them because Kramer shows up in Mad About You at one point. It's a lot of it's directed by Larry Charles. And I'm thinking that's where Larry Charles met Jeffrey. What's his name? Jeffrey Garner, the dude from Curb.
Jeffrey from Curb. Oh, yeah, Jeff Garland.
Garland. Yeah, I knew it was wrong. Jeff Garland. So like he shows up towards the end of the series too. I'm like, okay, there's all kinds of connections to that universe.
That's fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Hey, cool. I wanted to mention, because we hadn't mentioned it, well, it is still newer. We have a writer's strike. The WGA is on strike right now, and this one's going to drag out for a while. Have you been paying attention to this at all, or reading about it, or do you not care?
Yeah, no, I've been following it.
I think it looks like it's going to be a stalemate for a while, and it really reminded me by digging into this writer's strike. It's the WGA, Writers Guild of America, and they have about 12,000 members, and the fact that we have had shows shrink down, 8-episode seasons, 6-episode seasons. I didn't think about what a toll that was taking on writers. I know they weren't getting as paid as much. And yet if they were, it was being spread out longer because there was only so many episodes compared to, seasons of TV back in our heyday, 22 episodes, 23 episodes. That's no longer the case.
Yeah. I was reading an interview with, I forget the guy's name, unfortunately, but he was the writer of an episode of The Bear on Hulu that won, I believe it won an Emmy. And he was talking about how when he wrote the episode, like his heat wasn't working in his apartment and the power wasn't really working in his apartment. So he literally wrote that in a public library. And it's like, dude, that's just, and here the show like wins a Grammy or an Emmy. And it's like, this is just, I've never understood just the constant bullshit of the disrespect of the people that literally create the stories that, there's nothing there without them. So like of all the people to disrespect, it's never made sense that they'd be treated this way in their industry for so long.
I've thought a lot about that relationship with CEOs or people who run studios and how they probably take credit for, I picked that guy. I picked that person for that show. But I mean, that's all you did. The show would not exist at all, like you said, without the fucking writer.
I told him to put that giant metal spider in there. That was my idea.
Exactly. That's what we're dealing with here. And then they try to make the argument on the studio side. By the way, they're all aligned, apparently. They're called like the AMPM or something. They got some name moniker for all the studios. But, they make a shitload of money. CEOs make one of them got a $250 million payout recently for Paramount, I think it was. And they're trying to say, there's some writers over there who have massive deals. But those are like Shonda Rhimes for Netflix, or Ryan Murphy, the Michael Schur, who does The Good Place and Parks and Rec and some other stuff.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Very good. Those guys are that's unique. The 12,000 people in the guild, there's like 12 people like that.
They're literally the only writers that like the everyday American can name. So like of course they're getting good money. They're not a good example. Well said.
I'm for it. I'm always with the union, not because I have to be a union man, but because it makes sense that people should just be treated fairly when there's more than enough money to go around.
There's power in the union. Hell yeah.
Damn right. Yeah, we're not going to fall for the modernization of what's happened over the last 20 years of right to work state is better for you. That's just not. It's not true, folks.
Right to get fired state.
Hey, yay! We're gonna get fired. Well, we might get fired from the show. Who could say for sure? But on the Cinema 9 podcast,
fire ourselves.
We'd like to. Yeah, we could fire ourselves because we're in charge here. But on this show today, we're going to dive into Princess Mononoke. It's time. Travis's selection. This is a film from 1997, and it's an anime film, which, that's more outside my zone. I admit that freely. But I have to imagine, Travis, that you absolutely could recall when you first saw Princess Mononoke.
You are correct, sir. I have a very specific memory of seeing this movie. So it came out in 1997 in Japan. That's when Studio Ghibli released it there, but it wasn't released in U.S. theaters until October of 1999. So, and when that came out in theaters, me and my brother Judd, who we were just talking about in that Bad Religion episode of 93, 94. Me and my brother Judd grew up not even knowing necessarily that we were big Studio Ghibli fans. We were huge fans of the movie Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind. And we loved a bunch of other anime stuff. We were huge Robotech fans, and we watched, Appleseed and Akira, like all the classics. We watched a lot of that kind of shit. And then 99 came around, and my brother was in town from the Marines to get married as a 23-year-old man. I was 19. He, myself, and our friend Dave Horning, who would have been 21, wild men in the prime of their lives. It's time to go have my brother's bachelor party. What does he want to do? He wants to go to Great Lakes Crossing, the fucking middle of. We had to like drive an hour and a half to get to this theater because it was the only theater that was playing Princess Mononoke, and that's what we went and did for what would have been his bachelor party. The three of us went and saw this movie.
That was funny. Wow.
Yeah.
What a raucous night that was.
Pretty wild. Someone had a soda.
Somebody had a Coke. Somebody had a Jolt soda. Could have happened.
Yeah, there were some GGBs probably. I don't know. But we had a good time, and I remember it very well, unlike many other good nights that I've had.
Oh. Yeah. Well, it happens. You're only human. We're only human.
Only human. I'm going to sing to you now.
And in this movie, there's some people are actually human. They're part human. They're part animal. A lot going on here, but I never saw this movie, so there's no need for me to tell you a story about seeing this. Yeah, I never saw it, but I did watch it for the show. So I now have seen Princess Mononoke. IMDb rating wise, we always rate, or we like to guess the rating for the IMDb rating. I have to assume this is a beloved film. The only question is it an 8 or not? I'm going to say it's not. I'm going to say it's a 7.7.
I want to say it's an 8. I'm going to say it's an 8.
Okay, good. I like that. Go for it. And you would be surprised? Maybe not. 8.3.
8.3. All right. That's pretty high. I've picked a highly regarded film.
Yeah, damn right it is. That's a high number. 8.3 out of 10. That usually is classic status. Plus 406,000 people have rated the film. That's an excellent number. Yeah. It's in the looks like the top 1,400 movies on IMDb according to how people rate them. So that's
a lot.
Big deal. I mean, there's been a lot of movies in history already, so really have no idea. I can't fathom it. But yeah, that's cool. Good for them. And then on the Rotten Tomato side, we take a look at the reviews, and I will be curious to see how these go, especially for back in time, because it's an anime movie. It's from Japan, right? It's not a mainstream American movie. There'll be certain critics who see it, but there might be a lot of critics who didn't see it in the time to review it, I would guess. What do you think?
I think that, as I recall, this was received warmly in America. I feel like there was, by this point, this was right about the time America was starting to be like, okay, Miyazaki is a big deal, because he's been a big deal in Japan for a long time. But
is that the director?
Yeah, Hayao Miyazaki, the director. I feel like this was like the movie where where people were like starting to catch on a little bit more, because stuff like My Neighbor Totoro had come out a long time ago, but by this point, they had been established as classics in the genre. So it was like a returning king situation, I think.
A return to innocence.
Very musical episode today.
It just came right to my mind. I used to love walking around the house doing that.
So that's like Tibetan singers that never got paid a dime for that song.
Really?
Those background singers, yeah, that was sampled from, that was like taken from a release that they did, a religious release or something that they did. Never made a dime off that song.
Why am I not surprised?
Right?
That's disappointing.
Sorry to ruin that song for you.
Well, no, I want to know the truth.
I
do not want to live in an ignorance is bliss situation. I prefer to know the truth. So
I could be wrong, maybe
enlightening.
not Tibetan, but it's definitely not American Indian like I thought for a long time. It's something else. They're someone else.
That's fascinating. Well, on Rotten Tomatoes, Princess Mononoke's got a 93 from the critics, outstanding, and then a 94 from the audience.
All right. So again, like I think I said last week, I was pretty sure how I was going to feel about this. This was more to see how you felt about this.
Ooh, well, we're going to find out. That's what we're doing the show. Let's take a look at post reviews. So after the movie came out, like decades, because we often get people who go back and review the movie in the 2010s. So Destin, we're hoping to get a Destin on this for sure. Ann Hornaday from the Baltimore Sun.
Hey, there she is, your favorite.
Hey, Ann. In November of 2013, Ann said, with a luminous attention to light, water, shadow, and smoke, Miyazaki creates an epochal, oh boy, E-P-O-C-H. Epochal story, born of history, myth, and Shinto animism. What is Shinto animism?
So Shinto is one of the dominant religions of Japan. The belief that everything has a spirit of sorts, everything from the forest to a stone, an individual stone, which is a form of animism, which animism is essentially the same idea, that the idea that like about the living force of nature and things. As far as I understand it. So this is actually like a lot of his stuff, Miyazaki's stuff. This is an extremely religiously based movie.
Interesting.
It's not one that we would necessarily recognize as Westerners.
Well, I definitely was on the spiritual tip, no doubt about it. Obviously,
yeah. I mean, like, I guess, like specifically recognize the Shintoism, and I guess, or the.
I wouldn't have known that. Yeah, you're right. Wesley Morris for the San Francisco Examiner back in 2000 said, for an insight into precisely how stunning Hayao Miyazaki's rich animated epic Princess Mononoke is, you need only consider how little of it leaves you once you've left it. Really sticks with you, according to Wesley.
He found a roundabout way of saying that, I feel like.
Of course he did. He's a writer, right? He got to do his thing.
Little purple rose there.
Yeah, well, looking for Destin. There's a lot of reviews on this one. Obviously, it's a very well-known movie. Back in when this movie came out, Jay Hoberman of the Village Voice said, Princess Mononoke is a complex, superbly rendered, and wildly eccentric anime. Easy peasy.
All right, so some pretty glowing reviews here. I mean, is there anyone that didn't like it? I'd be curious to read a negative review.
Okay, I got you covered on that one, Travis, here. It's a Cinema Night podcast. We cover all angles, try to be fair to everybody as best we can. Maybe not every angle in the universe, but I mean, a lot of them.
Wolves Too Big, didn't like. Negative stars. Talking Pig, dislike.
That's good. I like that. Roger Ebert saw this and he said, Hayao Miyazaki is a great animator and his Princess Mononoke is a great film. Very simple. So,
okay. Well.
But as far as splats, I'm trying to look for a legitimate splat. Here's one. Jay Boyer of the Orlando Sentinel in 2013, about 10 years ago, Jay said, watching this film is often like observing a group of people playing an elaborate game for which you don't know the rules. What they're doing obviously has enormous meaning for them, but that meaning is mostly lost on outsiders. What an asshole.
I'm embarrassed for him.
I am too. Fuck Jay Boyer of the Orlando Sentinel. That is so like ethnocentric.
It sounds like someone who's never seen a film that wasn't made in the U.S., Canada, or England.
Exactly. Just it comes from another land, and we cannot relate to these people. Ridiculous.
Right? Give me more. I want more.
Stephen Hunter of the Washington Post, about 10 years ago, 2013, he said, Miyazaki's hordes... Wait, I just read this one, didn't I? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. Miyazaki's hordes of animators haven't penetrated beyond the skin. The moving creatures feel inarticulate and jerky, almost weightless, particularly when played against painterly background mats. M-A-T-T-E-S, of course.
Of course. Well,
so he's got... Okay.
I don't agree, but it's certainly a more like thoughtful critique than what the other dude said.
Yeah, like it's sensible at least, even if you don't
Yeah.
agree. But what do you think of the animation of this movie now? Because looking at it, for me, I did think like, wow, this movie's kind of dated.
Well, I mean, it's hand painted. You know, every moment that you're looking at is hand painted. Well, that's just how Studio Ghibli works. So, and I'm really really used to the style because again, I grew up watching his stuff. So to me, it doesn't really feel dated. It just feels like Studio Ghibli.
Oh, it it sometimes looks gorgeous and absolutely immaculate, but then there's sometimes I'm like, this kind of looks a little not cheesy, but there's a sacrifice of detail a tad. I don't know how much more detail I always need. It's not a huge deal for me for the overall movie because it has little to do with it, and it does. There's a lot of landscapes that look gorgeous, and you get to see that gross mole boil that Billy Bob Thornton's monk character has on his face. That's really well done, and it's very clear.
Good looking boil.
Yeah, it is. And so we should mention that yes, the English version of this is a Japanese movie, but they did a dub with Billy Crudup. Man, I love Billy Crudup. I didn't know I was getting Billy Crudup in this, so that I gotta admit freely that really brought me more into this movie almost immediately.
I texted you that he was in it.
Oh shit! Well then, I'm just so busy I don't pay attention to anything. I'm sorry.
The busiest man in the world.
Yeah, I know. I'm more busy than anybody could ever be.
All right. I only had sorry, never mind.
But Billy Crudup.
Yeah,
I didn't know Billy Crudup would show up.
Billy Crudup's buttock shows up, and he's got that lovely voice. Please, I love that. Like the character Ashitaka is always like, "Please, I don't want to hurt you." And then he like takes the guy's head off.
Yeah, he will yell like, "I don't know!" But like, yeah, that's it. You're right.
Very, very chill. But yeah, we got Billy Crudup, we got Billy Bob Thornton, we got Claire Danes, we got Gillian Anderson in this thing. We got who am I forgetting?
Minnie Driver,
of course. And then
we
have
Lady Eboshi.
Yep, and we got an animated version of Dennis Franz in there. I don't know if you saw him.
I did not see that. Shit.
One of the village people in Irontown looks straight up exactly like Dennis Franz.
Oh, I know you're talking about. Yeah, that guy. Yep.
Of course, you know who I'm talking about. He's the only motherfucker that looks like Dennis Franz.
As soon as now I see it. Also, I mean, I don't know why this guy doesn't do more voiceover work, but Keith David as a Koto, the very respected leader of the Boers.
And the narrator, he does the narration of the film too, and
it's true. But like,
he does a fair
really,
I mean, he was Spawn in the animated series, which I guess was a while ago now, but he's done some.
Been a minute,
but yeah, no, he's great in this.
Yeah, so you got a bunch of people you recognize as legitimate actors working in Hollywood 25 years ago, even still today. Jada Pinkett Smith is in this as well.
Of course, yep.
As the Toki, and
yeah, she's got a lot of sass, a lot of sassitude coming out of her.
I love Toki. She was a lot of fun. Every time she talked. This movie is interesting because it really doesn't. It's first off, it's not a part of the Hollywood studio system, so you could already see immediately what the studios do to movies. Even if they're great movies, a lot of them still end up fitting this typical kind of template that is set up. And this movie, it circumvents a lot of conventions and expectations and tropes related to film and really society and how we work together. The women who were taken from brothels by Lady Obashi to work in the iron factory, and they are in charge. The men are subjugated to them in a way, right? I mean, it's not clearly defined that way, but they certainly have a lot more power in this film.
Which I cannot tell exactly if that's supposed to be a good thing or a bad thing.
Right.
Because you look at Lady Hibashi, right? She hangs out with lepers and prostitutes. Does that remind you of anyone? She comes from the West and she brings bullets and metal, right? I mean, it's not subtle.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that because my first viewing, I just get overwhelmed. Wow.
Sure. Right. And I've had years to contemplate that. But like you think, like, right, she's from the West, she brings metal, bullets, and like, and women are subverting like the social norms and like emasculating the men. And I think that like in some ways we're supposed to be like titillated by that and entertained by it and be okay with it. But also I'm not sure if we are, how much, I mean, I'm not saying that that's the main message, but you know what I mean? It's like, I get mixed feelings about it, or I sense mixed messages.
Yeah, it makes all the sense to me. I'm glad you brought that point up. There's clearly, you got a lot of different sects in this movie, sects, with you got Ishitaka, who leaves his tribe, which is a stupid rule. I mean, we just have to get rid of you. We can never say farewell. They can't even come out and say bye.
Oh my God, I know. But I think that's really important because I think Ashitaka, he represents someone who respects tradition. Whether he agrees with it or not, he doesn't bat an eye, he doesn't shed a tear. He's completely stoic about it. He doesn't question. He's just like, I understand the rules. This is tradition. I will follow it. And that's like him throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, this guy, Ashitaka, has an incredible sense of integrity and discipline.
He's like a superhero.
But he's like, but like in a way that you don't always see. Does he have faults? I mean, what faults do you see in the character of Ashitaka? What are his shortcomings, I guess?
I mean, he is inclined towards anger and violence at times. Now, he ordinarily is able to funnel that in healthy ways. He's the kind of guy that, like, he hears that there's some sort of danger in the village, he's going to seek it out. But still, he's also like kind of a violent-minded person, which we see that because every time he gets angry, that's when he gets like stronger. And I think that's saying a lot about, like, you know, anger can be a gift, to quote Zach De La Roca, but
anger is a gift,
of course. So, but at the same time, like, it can consume you. It can literally kill you in certain ways. And I think that, so yeah, I think he is a flawed character. He's a little Boy Scouty, but he does have moments in him where he is inclined towards violence.
Even when his sister comes out, which she's not supposed to do, to say goodbye to him, because he's been, he went to battle with the boar who had the demon, and he got touched by it. And I had a little bit of an issue here with how long this demon curse takes to overtake him. Everyone's talking about, you're going to die a terrible death, but he seems to be just hanging out doing fine for most of the movie, frankly.
Well, I think it's like every time he gets angrier, it gets worse. So he's trying to keep, that's partly why he's so zen about things, because he's trying not to get upset.
Oh, well, I think about what that one critic said about what the rules are in this movie. Let's see. I would say, maybe, they have these layouts of, here's how this works, and here's how the forest spirit works, and here's how we work here over there. And I guess I don't really care, but yeah, they kind of seem to play a little bit fast and loose with like the rules of how everything works in this film. But it's not a big deal, but it's noticeable to me.
That's fair. I mean, I guess it's, they can always fall back on it's mystic, it's mystical, it's beyond our comprehension, etc. I have a question for you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Bring it. Go ahead. No, please.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard did you laugh when you finally saw the forest spirit's true face, like his human face?
I didn't laugh at all. I got to be
honest.
You didn't laugh at
all? I was convinced that you would just find him hilarious, but I guess I was wrong.
I was engrossed in the movie. I will say this about the movie. It really, for the moment it starts, you're like, okay, what the hell's going on? Who's Princess Mononoke? Why is this film called Princess Mononoke? For a while, I'm like, I don't understand the title of this film, because she doesn't really show up for like 45 minutes or roughly.
Yeah. And then she goes by San half the time anyways.
Yeah, exactly. She's with the wolf people. She's part human, part wolf.
So Mononoke is a vengeful spirit. That's like the Japanese word for vengeful spirit. Kind of like, remember that movie, The Grudge?
Yeah.
The horror movie, The Grudge. So that was a Mononoke. And so she is supposed to be like, remember, she's supposed to be like formerly human. I think she might be dead. I'm not really sure exactly what's going on with all of that.
See?
But yeah, it's a little unclear. Because they said that she was once human, but Mononoke is like a vengeful spirit, so that's kind of what she's representing, like the vengeful spirit of the forest or something.
Yeah, and if they kill the forest spirit, she could be a human again or something too. That's mentioned.
Yeah, cool.
So, yeah, cool, great, that's awesome. Whatever. Clearly, that there are multiple groups here. So you got Ishitaka coming. He comes from the west, right? Did I get that right?
No, Ishitaka.
They're west.
I thought he came from the east. No, he comes from the east. He comes from the far east, and it's Lady Higoshi comes from the west.
Lady Hiboshi comes from the west. Okay,
Lady Hiboshi comes from the west.
So also his group of people, people think that they died off 500 years ago. That's what the rumor is when he first meets Billy Bob Thornton's Bozo Monk character. Which I got to tell you, man, I like Billy Bob Thornton as an actor, but I don't know why they chose him for this film.
I think because it was 1999 and like he was willing to do it. because
Oh,
he's
well, that makes sense.
yeah, I kind of agree with you. Like out of all of the voiceover work in the film, his is the most. I feel like I can hear him reading off a page a little bit.
Yes.
Claire Danes
Thank
a little
you.
bit too. I think she struggles a little bit. I think she does okay, but yeah, with him especially, it's like it feels rushed in a lot of places.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just his drawl with his accent a bit. It just takes me out a little bit more than no other voices. The voice work in this, I think it's really really good. I don't think you point. At least I didn't point anybody else out there and said, "Wow, this is terrible," or "It's taking me out of the movie." Everybody fits their parts in a way where they're very calm, or whether it's the gorillas as well, who who are they can't fight apparently. They're afraid. They'll run away. They're afraid of wolves. Why are they afraid of wolves?
Wolves have teeth. I don't know. But while we're on the subject of the voiceover, this movie actually has my favorite voiceover line ever. Like I think the most effective line in a movie. That's a voiceover, and also the least effective line I've ever heard in a movie. I swear to God, I've always felt this way. And it's from like these really like tertiary characters. When Ashitaka has to leave, and the old lady like rolls the bones, and like they're like in that like hut area, and like all the elders are surrounding, and like that one elder is like talking about like how fucked up everything's been. He's like, sometimes I think the gods are laughing at us. I think that whoever that dude is kills it. That delivery is amazing. And then at the end of the movie, when the other dude's like, I didn't know this forest spirit made the flowers grow. Like, every time I'm like, oh my God, he said it. I hate it so much. It's the worst delivery ever. It's so unconvincing.
I can see that. There's also voices put to a lot of background characters. They're not just background characters. They actually get to say things too, which I think to me improves the story a little bit. It's like, oh, everyone's in play here. It's not just a bunch of background set pieces. I dug that they gave a lot of voices to the most innocuous or pointless characters, I would say.
Yeah, well, the movie's not afraid to be complicated. To get back to your point about sects, like there's that one moment where Lady Hiboshi is trying to hunt down the forest spirit, but also like the emperor, like some other lord has come up on it. But there's also like the emperor who's there's like all these different factions.
Asano.
Yeah, there's all these factions, and sometimes we don't even see the factions. We're just aware of them, which makes sense because it's kind of like hearkening back to that age, that era in Japanese history when they were still organizing.
Yeah, I do think as a typical American citizen that I am, if I don't have a lot of understanding of the history of Japan and the samurai culture, which is a part of this, I admit that I really don't. It's a weak spot in my, even though I got a degree in history from a college, but I do admit it's a weak spot for me.
Yeah, but I mean, you didn't major in Japanese history, but also I feel like for me, I didn't know a lot of this stuff when I first saw it either, and I kind of took it as fantasy, which a lot of it is fantasy mixed with, based in some sort of religious belief or whatever. But I still, if you take it at its face value, it's still pretty to look at and entertaining.
Yeah. Oh, it totally is. I want to know more things. There's just stuff that made me, and maybe that's a good thing. The movie made me think about, what's the background on this historically? Maybe this would make more sense to me if I could look into it. And I don't mind doing that. To me, that's interesting. I get to learn. I get to expand my knowledge base. That's a positive for me. It's not a negative.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring in more international film, which we'll get to that again later in the episode, of course, when we talk about next week. But
yeah,
it is. I mean, like you already alluded to it, the fact that this avoids studio system kind of conventionalities is one of the things, and also the movie. For instance, the forest spirit, when he lets the two, he lets the giant boar and he lets the giant wolf both die. I forget their name, Morrow, and I forget that he like kills both of them rather than saving them, and he saves Ashitaka. Yeah, and then he saves Ashitaka, but he doesn't like take away the curse. There's so much there, like that's not satisfying for a viewer intentionally. So. Right, like nobody wins, nobody loses by the end of it. The forest spirit's still around, but he's also gone. It's all so fucking ambiguous, and it's just like you got to live in this,
and that's life too.
Yeah, and San and Ashitaka are going to live apart, like they're going to be together but apart. Like it's all like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he's got this. Ashitaka has this hardcore, almost dedication to Lady Eboshi in a way. It seems like he's more in love with her, frankly, than he is with San, but. Why?
I think he recognizes that he's a human and can never be part of the forest. So he'll be
fair.
as close as he can.
No, you put it like that. That makes sense to me. But why? So why is it only boars are turning into demon? Is there something about boars? Because we have the opening scene where the boar is a demon-filled guy with the iron. He was shot. He was shot with the iron ball that
Dude,
comes from Lady Boshi's guns.
How about when Billy Bob Thornton's character Jigo was like holding it in his chopsticks, and then he finds out that it was inside of a demon, and he like gives it back to him and starts using the chopsticks to continue eating. Every time I'm like, that's so gross. What are you doing, Jigo?
I thought that was going to come back to him and like kill him. Like, oh, dude, you put that in your it's your chopsticks. You put it in your mouth. It's a demon thing.
Yeah. Sorry, where were you going with that? I'm sorry, I got distracted.
So why is it that only these two boars turn into demons? Because they got shot? Because the wolf got shot.
And she was turning into a demon. Like
But I thought she only was because she got in contact with the Koto, the boar later in the movie.
No, even before that, she says that when she remember like that meeting she has with Ashitaka when Ashitaka's finally come out of his coma when he's been shot, and she's like on that cliff face on top.
And she'll say she'll kill him the next day if she's still there. Yeah.
Right. So she tells him there that she's got the bullet inside of her and it's going to change her and kill her and turn her into a demon. So she's talking about it at that point. So and then also San, when she's on the snout of the boar, she starts to turn into a demon as well. So I mean, you're right. There does seem to be a preponderance of demons that are, it's like, why you've got one boar. Why not? I guess because that's why the allies came from a far distance, because they're boars too. But yeah, it would have been kind of fun to see a different animal, I guess. But I get your point.
It makes sense to me why the first boar in the opening scene is a demon. I got that.
Yeah.
For Koto, though, he's on his way. He's beat up badly. The boars, by the way, the boars are a great representation of stubborn groups that to their own detriment go about their business in a way that will just only inflict pain and resolve nothing for them at all. That's a great representation of a lot of things, I think.
Yeah, Koto says, the humans will remember it. It's like, well, 1 or 2 generations might.
Exactly. But he's on his way. He's beat up badly. The boars have been slaughtered. He's on his way up to the forest spirit, to the center of the forest place where everything wonderful happens. And then he starts turning into a demon. I thought the whole point was, I just want to still live. I just didn't understand exactly why he turned into a demon at that moment. But if it is only because he got shot by an iron ball, then I get that. So.
I think it's this getting shot with the iron ball and probably some combination of giving into rage to some degree.
Oh, yeah. See, that's okay. Again, as a first time viewer, there's just a lot to take in. So you're the guy here. That's why I'm asking you, because you've had the experience.
Yeah. Again, only because I've seen it so many times. Like someday you'll have the same insights, Mike, because you're going to watch it every year for the rest of your life, probably too.
Am I? We'll find out soon.
We'll find out.
But one of the biggest things that came to me while I watched this film, and it just stuck right in my face, is that you love this movie because you're an animal lover. And this movie is heavy on like humans are scumbags and the animals are getting screwed by humans. I just really see you and your love for animals in this film in a major way. And I wonder if it even was like a place or source of inspiration for you long ago. I'm curious.
Oh, that actually reminds me what I should have said for my quarantine viewing picks. I did watch Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Talk about a movie that loves animals and is all about supporting animal rights and that kind of stuff. I guess that's part of it for me, and I say that, I don't know how good an animal lover I am. I do eat a lot of turkey and chicken, but
yeah, I think you have a strong affinities, but maybe it's just for your animals that you get close with. I don't know. But.
No, I do. I love animals. I prefer animals to humans. I always have.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably part of the allure for this for me. And again, also, like I mentioned earlier, I grew up on a similar movie called Valley of the Wind, the movie that I believe that he did before this one, but I'm not sure. There may have been some stuff in between. But this movie and that movie are incredibly similar. That movie, instead of a forest, it's a barren desert. Instead of giant mammals, it's giant insects. And other than that, there's a lot of really similar things. So in a way, I've been primed since birth to like this movie.
Been priming you up, boy, since birth. Now's your time.
That's right.
But it's heavy-handed is not even fair. It's just straight up like, hey, there was a time before our current existence where the humans already destroyed everything, when animals weren't just dumb beasts, as they say. Like, I think Dakota talks about one day we'll just be dumb beasts that they eat for meat or just for hunting.
Hunting
which is
for game.
Yeah, exactly. Which is unfortunately really how things worked out. Yep. If animals were like this once upon a time, it's a fun fantasy. I dig it. I love the fantastical nature of this movie with these animals being gods. They're not just animals, they're gods.
Yeah, yeah.
And they have a lot of power, but they also have a lot of attitude. And it's funny because, there's a lot of talk, especially in ancient history and maybe not as much today, about vengeful gods or vengeful god. And you see a lot of that in this movie. The gods are not like all knowing and all kind, generous beings. I dig that about this movie.
Yeah, no, I agree. I lost my thread there, whatever I was going to say. Oh yeah. To get to your point, like you're talking about how like a long time ago, and there, of course, this movie takes place like hundreds, if not like 1,000 years ago or something. But I also feel like it's trying to make a point about modern Japan or more modern Japan, because to me, when the forest spirit finally, we give you back your head. When he finally reunites with his head and like splashes down on Irontown and everything else and like fucks everything up in that beautiful moment where like you slowly see the growth start to come back, it's like, it's an atom bomb. It's a fucking nuclear bomb in nature's form. Right?
Great call.
Right. And the rebirth of that and how things can regrow from that. And as devastating as it is, we can come back from this. I'm like, oh man. I never got that. And I've seen this many times, but I didn't get that until this recent viewing.
That's fantastic. Well done. Yeah. That makes a ton of sense.
Doesn't it?
There's a lot of messages in this movie. There's a lot of symbolism and just, metaphors going on. I really love that part of the film as well, because there's so much to dig into and kind of, ponder in your own existence about how we operate today. How do I operate as an individual in terms of my relationship to nature? I mean, this film reminds me, I'm not saying it because it came from Asia, but it does remind me of the movie we watched that you maybe watched, the South Korean movie, right? Or the Korean film?
The Wailing. Yeah.
Yeah. I just couldn't help but find a few, because there was nature. There's a lot of nature. That's specifically why I felt the connection and a lot of points being made about humans and the relationship to nature in both films.
And well, that's animism again. That's that Asian folk religion stuff coming into both movies that you're picking up on.
That makes all the sense then. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's actually a super suitable comparison.
I did think, it felt like the score sounded very Bravehearty at times. I have to admit.
You know what? I love this score so much, but the second you said Braveheart, oh shit, I think you're onto something there.
I was trying to think. It's only certain parts when it swells in certain sections of it. I'm like, God, that does sound close to it.
There may be some inspiration there. I really do love the score. It's the definition of sweeping. And when you see it with like these giant painted vistas that are like the detail of like seeing the grass sway and like these tiny birds flying and like, the clouds in the mountains and shit. It's very, very effective to me. Now, I do remember a time that I watched this on acid with a bunch of friends and we just made fun of it the whole time. So I don't know if it lends itself to that experience.
I don't know if it does. Yeah.
But ordinarily, I find it very, very moving.
I wonder what Terrence Blanchard would have done with this score.
Oh, he would have fucked it up. We know that. He would have infused it with more horn.
Actually, I gotta say, I think I have a great idea for a YouTube channel. Just redoing all movie scores, except you put Terrence Blanchard music in there. I think that could be funny.
Need more brass. More brass.
Yeah. Turn it up louder. I can't hear you.
More maudlin. More brass.
Well, what else? I'm sure there's other things I've missed. I mean, you're the pro here.
Well, let's see. What else did we miss anything else? I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of shit that we've missed, because it's every fucking scene seems to be loaded with all kinds of imagery and references that, that you're not necessarily going to get. I certainly am not going to get. But no, I think that we covered it as much as we can. Clearly there's this wrestling going on in the film with industrialization and progress and what quote unquote progress really means, what the cost of that is. Can it live in balance with our old ways, with nature, with, etc.? And is it inherently bad? Can we live with it? I think it does a really good job of addressing some of the most basic questions about society. There's that word, but it really society. I do really think it's able to really get the gears turning on these kinds of issues.
Yeah, the relationship that humans have here just to themselves, because not only the humans are in a battle with nature and the gods of the forest, but they're also fighting amongst themselves as well. And there's just so many examples in Princess Mononoke of where humans have these motivations and they want to have power, control, greed. They also want to help one another at certain times. It depends which characters you're talking about here. Yeah. But I think one of the real benefits of this movie, one of the pluses for Princess Mononoke is that these people have their desires. And, like Lady Eboshi, she has her desires to help people, but at the same time, she's also, doing some cruel stuff. She shoots the head off of the forest spirits. She really does it. And this is what life is like. Characters are not just all one way. Like, oh, that character's like that. Kramer is Kramer on Seinfeld. That's just how he is. No, there's all kinds of different moments and questions that we raise to ourselves about our attitudes related to various topics, whatever they may be. And our relationships get dictated by how we perceive the world. And this movie, to me, is a really, really strong example of how you can write and make a quality film. It could be live action too. It doesn't matter if it's anime or live action. And you can have characters who show you various parts of themselves simultaneously and not necessarily learning lessons from it either right away.
Sure. No, I think you make a great point. I mean, the animation and the voiceover work and all that stuff, I'm sure that all, and obviously the story, the plot itself all goes a long way towards, I think, making this a classic film. But it's the nuance of each individual character that makes any film stronger. You think of the stuff that people really love, usually those characters are pretty dang complex. And I think Lady Hiboshi is a really good example of that. She is not all one thing. Sometimes she's blinded by her own avarice and her own ambition, and other times she is like genuinely caring about people, caring for the world's most cheerful lepers, I guess.
Yeah. We're the happy lepers. We're gonna do a dance now. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, she did a lot for them. She did a lot for the women there, and then at the same time, she's cruel to others. And you see it from the beginning too, when they're trying to take their rice up the mountain with the oxen, and they lose their people. That's how Shitaka gets involved with them. And when he brings the two injured men back to Irontown, Lady Eboshi just welcomes him in. Like she doesn't even think twice. She just gives all of her secrets and opens herself up to Ashitaka immediately. And that's just not something, I think, if this was done by different writers or a different type of project group entirely, I don't think that would have happened.
You're right. She'd be more two-dimensional, more like ominous. Yeah. Well, should we do our final thoughts here? Is there anything else you wanted to?
No, that's fine. We can do our final thoughts. Go ahead. You're the pro.
So, I truly love this movie. I mentioned that it literally has one of my favorite deliveries and voiceover work in any film, with I Think the Gods Are Laughing at Us. It also has one of my favorite images in all of film, animated or otherwise, which is the footsteps, especially like the second time you see them and shrouded in blackness, the footsteps of the forest spirit, how it steps down. And with every step, you get this vegetation grows up and then dies. It raises and falls with each step. I just love the imagery of that. And to me, like, that's the kind of stuff that makes this movie so rich and rewarding. It's just like thoughtful and ponderous and beautiful. And, it has things to say about important stuff. I grasp at how easily I can possibly put into words the magnitude of this film, but I really do think that it is a masterpiece, and I love it, and it absolutely holds up.
Not surprising there. Yeah, it holds up for Travis. I never saw this movie. It was my first watch. I respect anime. I just don't watch a lot of it. But I've always been like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, go ahead, do your thing. Anime, sweet.
Sure. Yeah.
But for the moment the movie got turned on, I was really locked in on it. I was engrossed by it for a way I'm not even sure why, but I was even standing up watching it like the first 15 minutes. I'm like, why am I standing here so close to the television? I gotta go lay down. I got a bed right here.
You were intent. That's great.
Yeah, it was weird. I was like, wait, what am I doing? So I readjusted. I got into the bed and watched it. But there are fun characters, interesting characters. I love the animals in this. And like, I didn't even mention, was it Kyle or what's Kale? What's the red antelope deer thing that?
Oh yeah, cool. I almost named my
Yakul.
dog. Remember Rolo? Rolo
Yeah.
was very close to being named Yakul. It just didn't really roll off the tongue. So I went with a different 1997 movie reference, LA Confidential. But he was very, very close to being named Yakul.
Yakul. I love Yakul. It's fun to see. It's just different. Hey, he's riding an antelope instead of a horse. Cool. That's fun. Yeah. It's a fun little thing for the beginning. And
he's a very cool antelope. He's very, very chill.
Yeah. So chill. When San takes the stuff off of him and says, Yakul, you're free. You go wherever you want. Yakul stays right by, not because he has to, but because he wants to stay by Ashitaka's side.
And also, I'm like, fuck you, San. Do that with your own pet.
Yeah, what are you doing? Come on, dude. Fuck off. But that's just another lovely moment. It is. It's beautiful. The relationship between animals and humans, and they're just beings. And there's a lot of assumptions. You would assume that when that moment happened, that you're free, Yakul. That you're cool, and finally run away and say, "Fuck that guy, I'm free finally." But no, that's not what Yakul was there. Because of the relationship they had. There was you never got that feeling from Yakul and Ashitaka's relationship that it was, I'm master and you're the servant, or, I am the person over you. No, they work together. They both need each other to survive. And
the way Ashitaka goes back to get Yakul and like limp him alongside with him when he refuses to stay. I love that so much.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's fantastic. It says so much about how we view relationships between various types of species. And that's just one example. There's a lot of examples of so much to consume here in this film. And I could nitpick a few things that I mentioned, like, how all the rules work within, but it's a fantastical story. It's an anime adventure, fantastical adventure. And it's fun. It's interesting. You're always trying to, especially the first time viewer, you're like, wow, what's happening? Where's this going to go? What's happening next? Which creature's going to show up? You'll never get that back, obviously. Once you watch a movie for the first time, you can never watch it again for the first time, which But this movie totally holds up. I really enjoyed it. It's a great film. I really, really dug it, man. I want to watch it again and see what I can gather from the second viewing so I can take it in more, because there's so much to absorb. I mean, this movie is what, 2:20? 2.5 hours?
Yeah, it's about 2.5. It's a little long.
But that's fine, though. I'm fine with it. I didn't think I never thought, honestly, as a first-time viewer in any part of the film, that it dragged. I truly didn't.
It doesn't sag at any point. Like, you're ready for it to keep going. But I fucking love that you liked it. It seems like you loved it. Like, I was prepared for like, I guess it holds up. It's, I recognize the art or whatever. But that you want to watch it again, that makes me really happy. And in fact, if you watch it again and enjoy it, you should go and watch Spirited Away after that.
That's what I realized. Now there's so much more for me to consume in this realm. So I'm excited. I'm glad you brought this to the table. And
all right.
I mean, I've always heard about a lot of other anime movies, of course, like Akira and Cowboy Bebop, but this one is beautiful. It's a fantastic film.
I'm glad you liked it, man. It is a fantastic film, but I'm glad you appreciate it.
It'd be hard not to, I think. Unless, of course, you're made of stone and you hate animals. That can be a problem.
Which I didn't think any of that about you. I thought that maybe you would find it a little weird and that you wouldn't connect to it because it's like cartoons and that's not normally your thing. But you did, which is great.
I did. I'm glad you chose it. It's an excellent film. If you've never seen it, I don't know why you're listening to this right now, actually. Yeah. I assume
that'd be weird.
You're hearing this. You've seen Princess Mononoke. I hope so. Watch it again if it's been a minute. It's an excellent film.
Fucking A.
All right. Well, this week we're going to have on Steve G from the Is It Safe talk show. He's a co-host with me over there. He's also, first and foremost, Steve is an old friend of ours, so we should mention that. We've known him since like 1995. It's been a long time.
Ooh, even longer, maybe.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, we relationships will vary, but he's a really entertaining, very knowledgeable chap. And we look forward to having him on next week here. cinema9pod@gmail.com. Send us an email if you found anything interesting about Princess Mononoke. Also, send us an email if you have any thoughts about how we do the show. Like we talked about, we just did a couple of quarantine viewing picks today. We got rid of it for a minute. Do you like that? Do you not like that? Your feedback really does matter. We don't want to be, locked in chains and committed to whatever you guys tell us, but your feedback really does give us some perspective. It does.
It's true.
See? It's true. Travis said so. All right, so next week, Travis, what is the movie we're doing?
So Steve Guile has picked for us another film from Asia. I believe it's a Hong Kong film, right?
Asia.
I want to say. I know it stars Tony Leung, and it's called 2046. Right?
Okay. Yeah, I think so.
I honestly had not heard of this film until today. So I'm ready to dig in. It's a highly respected film, and Steve is a highly respected film goer. So I'm sure he picked something of interest. And I've seen Tony Leung in some stuff, mostly, Shang-Chi. So I'm ready to see him and do, he's a pretty well-respected actor. So I'm ready to see it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Steve has a lot of movie-going experience, and he also... Steve Coogan. He wanted to follow the letter of the law of this show, which when you hear other people say it, because we're the hosts, it doesn't matter what we say because we do the show. But when people who listen to the show, they say to them, the definition of the show is picking a movie that you haven't seen in a long time. That's what Steve said. It really is about. He's like, I don't want to just pick some movie that, I don't want to pick some movie I could just gush over. I mean, obviously Travis loves Princess Mononoke, but he knew I never saw it. So it was a perspective to see, hey, what did this guy think of this film? I'm curious. That's one way to do it. But I'm also glad that Steve said that.
Yeah, I'm also deliberately trying to bring on like some stuff from some areas that we haven't done before. But did Steve think that the two of us had seen this movie before, 2046?
Definitely. No, not at all. He said, yeah, I could pick a bunch of films that I could think of that, are just I could gush over, but I want to pick something that I'm, not sure how I feel about it. It's been a long time since I've seen it. So for him, it's going to be a return to a movie that he saw once upon a time. But for you and I, it's going to be a whole brand new experience.
I'm looking forward to it. And we'll do that in a week or maybe 2 weeks, maybe 2 months and a day, 6 years.
I definitely deserve that. Hopefully we'll do it next Thursday.
Hopefully.
I've
put that
confirmed.
qualifier in there.
Hopefully. Fictitious God willing, we'll be able to. Maybe the forest spirit could help me out and we can make sure to get the show on time.
The deer with a human face and the weird ass human face.
It is a funny face. I mean, like,
it really is.
I didn't laugh out loud, but I was like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. It was a surprise.
So funny. I love him. He is majestic, but not a full-on view. Like only in profile is he majestic.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were baiting us into like you're gonna see a face eventually either. I really was too overwhelmed, I think, by the movie to understand that. But now I understand that. Makes sense.
Weird face. All right.
Weird guys. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. cinema9pod@gmail.com. That's going to do it for this episode. Travis, excellent selection.
Thank you.
And for you and for me, I'm going to say goodbye now. What do you say?
Goodbye.
Goodbye.